If that glass overfills, that go hard mentality ended up doing more harm than good. What's up, athletes? It's Tavin back with another video for you. Today we're going to be talking about training through pain and why it's kind of garbage. So there's this go hard mentality when it comes to training for athletics. And even in just the gym world in general, there's this go hard mentality and to win no matter what, and to fight hard and to go harder than last time. And it becomes this badge of honor. And there's definitely a time and a place for that mentality. But here's the thing. If you're training through injury, it's not going to be a helpful mindset for you to have. And here's why. Training through pain can be broken down into two parts, physical and mental. We're going to talk about the physical first, and these are the spots that are probably going to be a little bit more known to you. When you train through a physical injury, when you're training through the pain of an injury, one, it can aggravate the injury further. It can extend recovery time and even do permanent damage in some cases. It's also going to delay your recovery in general because you're not giving those tissues time to heal, and even risk more injury because there are going to be other parts of your body that end up compensating for the area that's injured, traveling up that kinetic chain. So for example, if you have a bad knee, your ankles and your hips are probably going to start bearing that load in ways that they shouldn't. And so when you have all of those factors, it reduces your ability to compete and perform the way you did before. Now, there are ways to train around injury, and there's definitely, ways that you can do it safely. And, even just avoiding that area altogether when you're training is okay. But when you're training and it hurts and it just keeps getting worse, you're not giving your body time to heal. And I'm willing to bet that from a logical standpoint, you can look at all of those reasonings and be like, yeah, that makes sense. If something hurts, if you physically can't do the movement, then yeah, maybe don't do that movement for a little while and train other parts of your body, or do something different so that you can keep your body moving without exacerbating the injury that you already have. But here's the other part of this, is the mental side. And so mental health is a huge topic of discussion, especially when it comes to being an athlete and training like an athlete. When it comes to physical injuries, yes, having a physical injury is going to impact your mental health when it comes to training, because you're not going to be able to perform and compete and do the things that you were doing previously. And it gets really frustrating, and you might start to feel a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of depression around that. And that's okay. The physical injury will heal over time. But what about mental injuries? I am a huge proponent of training through trauma and using movement and using athleticism to help work through past traumatic events. Here's the thing about trauma. It turns your thinking brain completely off. And when your brain is turned off, you don't have the same ability to regulate your emotions. You don't have the same ability to look at a situation and make decisions. And so because we know that trauma turns off your thinking brain, being able to train helps establish a better mind-body connection. And through that better mind-body connection, it allows you to understand how feelings pop up in your body, and it allows you to have more tools in your pocket to then be able to turn your thinking brain back on. And when it comes to trauma, it can help you process through that a little bit better because you have more tools and because you have more awareness of that mind-body connection. Now, with that said, it's a fine line. So coming back to that go hard mentality, training through stress and training through trauma can be a situation where that go hard mentality is going to do more harm than good. If you think about having like a comfort zone for your trauma, you want to have a moment where you're pushing that threshold, but not overflowing it. If you think about your trauma levels as like a glass of water, there's going to be days where that glass is a little bit more empty and the glass is a little bit more full. And so that glass represents your ability to kind of contain and regulate through your trauma. And so in the moments when your trauma might be a little bit higher, that glass is a little bit more full. As long as it stays within that glass, you're okay. You haven't spilled, you haven't made a mess. And for me, the things that have been most helpful is when I'm right at the peak of that glass overfilling. That water is like right up to the edge, and I know I'm doing something that feels uncomfortable, but hasn't made me feel triggered yet. Now, here's where the go hard mentality can push you over the edge. It adds just that extra little drop of water for everything to come spilling out. And that's when your thinking brain is going to turn off. That's when you're feeling triggered. That's when you're super stressed. And when you're super stressed and when you're feeling triggered, again, it turns that thinking brain completely off. Like we mentioned before, trauma will turn off your thinking brain. And you're going to end up either being really hyper aroused or hypo aroused. You're going to be really attentive and alert to everything that's going on around you, or you're going to be a little bit numb and kind of shut down. And so if it puts you outside of that water glass, of that comfort zone, then no, that go hard mentality is not going to be beneficial for you. It's going to end up doing more harm than good, because now you're at this place where you're super triggered and you have to kind of come back down and regulate back down out of that. And so there's that nuance to being an athlete, because yes, training absolutely has helped me with my trauma. And I know it's helped a lot of other people with their trauma as well. Because there's that fine line of knowing that trauma turns off your thinking brain, training can help you be able to establish a better mind-body connection to then be able to regulate some of those triggers and get on top of them before they end up becoming a problem. But if you push past that point, if that glass overfills, that go hard mentality ended up doing more harm than good, because now you're feeling triggered. Now you have to deal with those triggers and come back down and try to reset and recalibrate where you're at for the day. And so, yes, there is a time and a place for that go hard mentality, but it's not 100% of the time. It's not 100% of the time when it comes to physical injuries, and it's not 100% of the time when it comes to mental injuries, things that are going on upstairs that you have to work through. It's about finding that balance. And the more you listen to your body, the more you give yourself some grace to take it easy, to back off on certain days when you're not feeling it, the better off you're going to be in the long haul. Because when it comes to training, especially as an athlete, the goal is to be able to do it sustainably for a long period of time. And when you're pushing your body past its breaking point all the time, you're going to risk injuries. You're going to risk injuring yourself further. And it's just not a good scenario for you to be in. And having those physical injuries is going to end up taking a toll on your mental health, because you're not going to be able to perform the way that you used to. It's going to be really frustrating. You might have to deal with anxiety or depression. And if you're already dealing with past traumas and using training as a way to work through them, it's going to be one of those moments where going hard is going to do more harm than good. Especially if you're already injured, it's already like that glass is 3/4 of the way full, and it might not take a whole lot extra for it to spill over, and now you're triggered and having to deal with those things. Really start to pay attention to how you feel, and it's okay to give yourself some grace to not train on a certain day, or to take it easy on days where you felt like you should have done more. You don't always have to go hard. It doesn't have to be 100% of the time. The next time you go into the gym, try to do a little bit more than you did the day before, if you feel like you can, and if it feels like you're in a place to be able to do so. Remember to train sustainably. As athletes, that's the goal, is to do what we love for a long period of time. And that means taking care of your physical health and your mental health. So, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Leave a like, a comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you liked this video, be sure to watch another one, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.